Star Wars Battlefront 2 has came out in November 17, 2017, and basically became the most controversial game of the entire year. And why is this? Why is it? Well, it's pretty obvious. Everyone's pissed at the microtransactions, they're pissed at the fact that the game was pay to win for a time, and they're generally pissed at how much bad business practices EA has done to this game. And it honestly leaves the question at this point, why is it that people like this game? Is there a particular reason? Well, yes, the game is well designed and it's improved in many ways from the first one. And honestly, unlike most people, I did enjoy the first one a lot, even though I considered that the game itself was quite mediocre, but it was fun. It was this dumb arcade type fun with the Star Wars universe. But I always expected more from Star Wars game. And then comes this. Now, I just want to make myself clear. I never bought Star Wars Battlefront 2. I got it as a Christmas gift from a couple of friends, but aside from that, that's the most I got. So I now own the game, but I never bought it. But the key thing to look at here is that is Battlefront 2 actually good? Is it a good game? And I'm not looking at this from a business design standpoint. I'm not looking at this from the perspective of, oh, I hate microtransactions, I hate pay-to-win systems, but the game itself. Because in my opinion, when you look at it from a certain sense, is it fair to necessarily hold everything against the game just because it has a bad business practice? Now, I'm going to make it clear when you look at things. Alright, I'm not saying that EA is in any way justified for the practices they get. And this game, as far as sales are concerned, deserve every lackluster sale that it got. And it definitely deserves all the microtransaction complaints that it got to where it resulted in EA having to remove them. And honestly, the fact that they haven't returned yet is something that actually quite surprises me. But that being said, I think it's because they're afraid of a fiasco happening that would damage the game's longevity even more than it already has. And but that being said, it does make me feel sympathy for one thing. It makes me feel sympathy for DICE. Because, look, I'm going to make myself clear. Despite EA's poor business practice, the question is, does the game suck? A bad game? And generally, I'm just going to be honest, and I'm sorry if I trigger 1,000 dislikes. I don't care. But Battlefront 2 is a good game. I'm sorry, but it is. It's well polished, it's well crafted and designed, it has a lot of good qualities, has a good amount of content, and as a whole, if nothing else, it's pretty much improved from the first one in every sense of the word. The only thing that one could even debate about the first one is the way the hero system is, but that's more up to personal perspective. But that being said, even despite that, these reviewers are giving it lower ratings than the first game. And simply put, that's mostly coming down to the fact that it had a shady business practice, that it had a business practice that was so anti-consumer and so pretty much evil that it pretty much damaged any hope that the game had for its longevity. But I ask myself the question, is this worth holding against the game? Is Battlefront 2 one of those things that it has? Is it one of those things where the game is worth tearing apart to the point where you could say it's a game that sucks, that it deserves like a 3 out of 10? And in my opinion, no. Because I think something that the industry needs to realize, and it's something upon picking your battles, is that the industry needs to be explained upon that there's a difference between a bad game that's just poorly designed and does things that just frustrate consumers all over the place, and games that are good but they're consumed by poor business practices. And I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying that in any way we should defend or sympathize with these business practices. They are evil, they are anti-consumer, but what I am saying is we need to regard what this game does right. That way, if they make a Battlefront 3, they know that it's not the game design that's poor, but just the business practices that surround it. And look, I'm not saying go out and support the game. I'm not saying go out and, buy and support EA. Yeah, far from it. But what I am saying is that we need to look at this from a non-prejudice perspective. That much, say you don't own the game, rent it from a local store, and perhaps give it a try and see how it is. See if it, if you enjoy the gameplay and all that, then hold that into account if you make a review or something, because simply talking about this allows community feedback. It allows DICE to get the word. Because honestly, the main regard is, I don't think Battlefronts could afford another redesign. I don't think they can afford this. And mostly, I think that's because they finally did a gameplay that is actually really enjoyable. Does it have its faults? Of course it has its faults. But generally speaking, the gameplay, the content, the maps, and all that are things that are really good about the game. And we don't want to send them the message of saying, oh, even despite these good things that you've done, your game completely sucks just because of a business practice that is removed from the game. And like I said, I'm not saying support EA or anything. What I am saying is that we need to judge the game as a whole to reflect it that you don't, in my opinion, it's a misinterpretation to say that Battlefront 2 is a bad game. It's not. Alright, and saying that it's a bad game completely contradicts the idea of what a bad game is. For example, as a whole, here's my opinion simply put. Aliens Colonial Marines is a bad game. Destiny 1 is a bad game. Heck, even Call of Duty Ghosts is a bad game. Bad games should be reflected as games that weren't really well crafted in design, to the point where they just created things that frustrated the player while you're in the game experience. And generally speaking, there's nothing in Battlefront 2 while I'm inside the game, playing the game, that frustrates me. There's nothing that really reflects poorly. Yes, I get angry with heroes versus villains when there's the higher tier star cards, but it's like nowadays, since you can't pay for them anymore, they're just people that are more experienced. And I think that's the way we need to kind of look at things. We fought this battle, and for now at least, it's a battle we won. It's a battle that we managed to win, yet people still bring it up as like this whole thing that, oh, Battlefront 2 is so bad, it's such a bad game. It's not. Alright, I'm sorry. Break it to you guys, but the game that has the most advanced graphics ever composed, that has great soundtrack, music, sound design, has an authenticity to the Star Wars universe that's really grand despite some poor choices, and as a whole has a good amount of content, up to 14 different locations of planets and a multitude of scenery and vehicles and weapons. That's considered a bad game? Because last time I've heard, a bad game is a game that doesn't perform well, or a game that is so lackluster on its experience that it doesn't even bother doing anything interesting. Not a game that invests itself into being the most authentic Star Wars experience to date. And does that mean I want to defend the game? No, of course not. I have no intention on defending this game. But I think the main thing that needs to occur nowadays, and it's something I want to remind people, is just we need to move on. We need to move on. Battlefront 2 is one of those things where it's like, it's tragic that it had to go through this, that it had to go through this, it had to be caught in the crossfire of these business practices. But that's the thing. Battlefront 2 was, the game itself isn't the villain. in my view, it's the victim of the villain that's pulling the strings, the masterminds that are EA that's pretty much causing this game to be something that it doesn't want to be, which is like this ticket to poor business practices and, cheaply stealing money from people and stuff like that. It's like, it's not like DICE wanted this. And I think that's what people need to remember. You know, people are going to have their opinions. I understand that some people just don't like Battlefront 2 because they don't like Battlefront 2 because it's not like the originals, which I completely understand that. That's completely justified. However, I think it's kind of important that we need to pick our battles. We need to reflect the fact that DICE created a game that, by design is really good. And that EA was the one that came in and ruined it. And that they were the ones that ruined what otherwise made this game really worthwhile. And due to that, we need to reflect that Battlefront 2 as a whole isn't a bad game. It's a good game that was ruined by poor business practices, because generally I see only Battlefront 2 getting this sort of flack. And it's like, there are so many other games that, could be even greater than they already are, but they're consumed by poor business practices. Destiny was this way, Call of Duty's this way, even Halo 5 was this way. But it's like, Battlefront 2 is one of the best crafted shooters of the year. It's, its graphics, its sound design, its music, its general gameplay, where, it introduces this system of the battle points, which, say what you will about whether or not you like it or don't like it, but it's not like gaming has really tried a system like this before. And I think that's the main thing people need to look at, People people are gonna have their different opinions, and that's fine. You know, people have Battlefront games where people have been playing the Battlefront franchise since the original, back in the early 2000s, and then some people just got the newest version because, they like watch the new movie, and it's like they want to be in the new movie, and so they're like, oh, let's play this game that has a map on the new movie. And, just have these people come together to play a fun Star Wars experience. And like I said, in my opinion, people need to judge the game for what it is. And kind of like, when a bad business practice comes aside, it's like, tear the game apart for the business practice. State, hey, these business practices aren't okay to be here. They're not okay. And if you want to boycott the game for that, go ahead. Say I refuse to buy Battlefront 2 because of this poor business practice, because I'm tired of games using it, and that I'm not going to support a game that does this. And that's fine. But I think people kind of put a blind sense of their anger towards things. They like to blame the game itself for having these poor business practices, and I just don't think that's fair. I don't think that's fair to DICE, considering that they put a lot of effort within this game, and that, they try to listen to everything that we criticized about the first one in order to make a game that was pretty much better than the first one in every sense of the word. And then I see people come out as it worse than the first one, so even though it improves from the first one in every way, I'm like, or to the point where it's like Battlefront 2 gets a lower rating than Battlefront 1. It's like, are you freaking kidding me? Are you seriously going to try to do this crap? Like, give Battlefront 2 a poor rating just because of its shady microtransactions? Like, that's not responsible for the heart of the game. It's not. And I think generally it's a little unfair to do this when, right now, at least, this game is struggling to stay afloat, and, that might be a good thing for some people, and the fact that it'll teach EA a lesson, and that's fine. Like I said, if you don't want to buy the game out of principle, be my guest, but at least acknowledge the fact that, hey, I'm not buying this game because EA absolutely screwed it over with its shady business practices, but I'll give credit where credit's due that DICE did good as far as the design goes. That if they can make a Battlefront 3 and keep all the good mechanics of Battlefront 2 without all the shady business practices and, maybe improve on some of the gameplay aspects, I would like to make vehicles just part of the map rather than, you know, this bow point thing, but I digress. The point is that we just gotta look at it from, you know, complaint, like, it's okay to, you know, hold something against the game as a whole for microtransactions, but I don't think it's fair to blame, to say that the entire game sucks because of a business practice. It's a little unfair to me when a game actually puts effort within its design, that there's a group of developers that actually care about their community, and it's like they're getting completely torn apart like this because the publisher that publishes their games, all the ones that are like the evil a-holes, and they like to associate them both together when, like I said before, DICE never wanted this. So yeah, like, and it's tragic. It is tragic that due to EA doing this, it had to resort to this type of crap. But I think as a whole, we just need to kind of let Battlefront 2 just take its rest. Let's finally let the game sort of rest in peace. To those who want to play it, let them play it. To those who don't want to play it, they just don't, you don't have to play it. If you don't want to buy the game out of principle, that's fine. But if people want to buy the game because they want to be in a good Star Wars experience, that's also okay, because as much as these shady business practices were evil and damaging the industry as a whole while they were there, if people bought the game while they had the microtransactions, while people were paying for the loot crates and all that, then yeah, it would have been terrible. But don't forget, the game doesn't have that anymore. So let's just look at it in an open note. Until then, guys, this is Stumma Orange 927, and I'll see you next time. Peace.